Mike Gil worked at the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission under the former president. He died on Saturday after being shot on Monday as a man went on a carjacking spree. The suspect later was killed by police after he shot at them near a stolen SUV.
A truly tragic story out of the District of Columbia, where a former election official by the name of Michael Gill was shot and killed during an hours-long crime rampage. Now, he leaves behind a wife and 3 grown children. He served 3 terms as an appointee to the DC Board of Elections and as chief operating officer of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission during the Trump White House. Now, what happened during this so-called crime spree that ultimately led to the killing of Gill? Well, Gill drove his new Jeep early Monday evening to pick up his wife, Christina, at her law office near Mount Vernon Square. He called her and told her that he was waiting downstairs. According to authorities, a man climbed into his vehicle and shot him. His wife I can't even imagine this man. His wife found him on the sidewalk with his head resting in a halo of blood, 1 foot still inside the Jeep. He was taken to a hospital in critical condition. He ultimately ended up dying from the gunshot wound. Michael Gill was the second person to die as a result of the series of crimes that authorities attributed to one man. The first man killed was identified as Alberto Vasquez Jr., 35 years old, who was fatally shot in a carjacking. Vasquez leaves behind 2 young children. The suspect was later killed by police early Tuesday. He was identified by authorities as 28-year-old Artel Cunningham from Suitland, Maryland. From Monday evening to Tuesday morning, in addition to attacking Gill, Cunningham committed or tried to commit at least 4 carjackings and fired shots at 2 police vehicles, police said. So this includes bashing a taxi driver in the head with his gun and stealing his car in University Park in Prince George's County, Maryland. These are all examples of what he did during this crime spree. Basically shooting the windscreen of a Maryland, or shooting at the windscreen of a Maryland State police trooper's car and later spraying the door of a DC police officer's car with bullets as he drove past it. And then eventually New Carlton police tracked the stolen car to near a laundromat. And at that point, it was found disabled by the side of the road. As they surveyed the scene, Cunningham walked up to them, producing 2 handguns, after which he was shot and later died in the hospital. Cunningham was thought to be undergoing a psychiatric crisis at the time of the events, law enforcement officials said. He also was arrested in previous crimes. For instance, he was arrested a year prior to these carjackings. Arrest records indicate that Cunningham was arrested on April 8th, for instance, April 8th of 2021 for disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, obstructing officers, and failing to obey police instructions. Then on September 24th of 2022, he was arrested for driving an uninsured vehicle and fleeing the scene of a car accident he was involved in. But unfortunately, DC's Attorney General Brian Schwab is under the impression that punishing violent criminals is actually pretty useless. Many community members demanded accountability from district leaders to address the violent crime epidemic after 2023 ended with a 39% increase in violent crime. Motor vehicle theft in the district increased 82%. Rising for the 6th year in a row, totaling 959 reported incidents. Metropolitan Police Department data showed 173 carjacking arrests were made in 2023, which is a 62% increase, or 62% of arrests involving juveniles. And this is something that has impacted other politicians and other officials in DC. For instance, Representative Henry Cuellar from Texas was held at gunpoint when 3 armed suspects stole his car less than a mile from the Capitol. Luckily, he wasn't hurt or injured as a result. Also, a diplomat from the UAE and an FBI agent were also carjacked in the city last year. But in regard to the Attorney General Schwab and his statements, he said, quote, "We as a city and a community need to be much more focused on prevention and surrounding young people and their families with resources if we want to be safer in the long run. We cannot prosecute and arrest our way out of it." Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I don't agree. I think we can. Look, it's not just a couple of leftists online. These prosecutors that keep saying, in the face of massive increases in violent crime and carjackings, et cetera, we can't arrest our way out of it. Well, let's give it a shot. Let's start with that first. And here's what I mean by that. In the bad old days, and why we needed criminal justice reform, they would just arrest Black people and Latinos instead of doing real police work. And now they've stopped arresting people and stopped prosecuting people that are committing violent crimes. Well, both are mental. Why do we have to choose one of the extremes? Why don't we do what 98% of Americans want, which is actually do police work, figure out who the criminals are, and then, yes, lock them up. We don't want injustice where you lock up the wrong people, but not locking people up when they're hurting innocent civilians is also injustice. So I totally and utterly disagree with the prosecutor. Like this idea of like, don't worry about arresting or prosecuting people. It'll magically work out when, by the way, are you doing anything about the root causes? I believe in doing things about the root causes. I believe in appropriating actually a good amount of money for that. Are you doing that? No.
Nope.
You're just letting them go. So wait, when you don't do anything about the root causes and you just let people go, then you're gonna get this. And then they're flummoxed as to why voters are abandoning Democrats all across the country. In the most liberal cities, Portland, Seattle, et cetera, they're throwing these bums out because people don't want to be robbed and carjacked and killed. Is this a complicated issue for leftists that believe in this insanity? Is that you don't realize that people don't want to be murdered? That's a hard thing for you to grasp. Okay, and then the second problem is, no, we need to definitely do involuntary commitments. And guys, again, here, balance. The extremes are nonsensical. In the bad old days, we would involuntarily commit people who did not have mental health issues. And then we would subject them to the worst conditions, right? Now, in these days, we don't involuntarily commit anyone. Oh, it's freedom to do carjackings. That's not a freedom. Freedom to kill people, that's not a freedom. You sound like lunatic right-wingers if you say that. No, if someone is having massive psychiatric issues that are related to harming themselves or others, definitely put them in a mental health institution and fund that mental health institution so it's not a nightmare, so that it actually tries to help those people. But what doesn't help that person, who, by the way, Cunningham also died, or the people he killed, is just letting him roam the streets in the name of freedom or rights, or please don't say progressive, because this has nothing to do with progressives. If you think you're a progressive and you're in favor of this injustice, you just don't understand what the word progressive means.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Cenk. And one of the biggest concerns I had when this trend started, because I know people, I know how people feel, and if they feel unsafe in their own neighborhoods, then they're going to turn their backs on the very notion of reforming our criminal justice system. And there were certain things that I wanted so badly that were never implemented, right? For instance, reforming our prisons so they're not just punitive, but have an element of rehabilitation so people are able to serve their time, get out, and have that rehabilitative experience so they can have great lives, right? Be productive members of society. And also to implement programs to help individuals transition out of prison into gainful employment and a productive life. Now what's happening, and I'm noticing this with what the DC City Council is proposing, is that people are so fed up with all of this that it's clear that this has squandered the opportunity to do the common sense reforms that we need. So for instance, the DC Council is now set to vote on sweeping crime legislation. And remember, the DC Council wanted to reform their criminal justice system into something far more loosey-goosey, and they got shot down by Congress because it's DC and Congress has a say in their legislation. But nonetheless, the bill that they're now considering would allow the DC police chief to declare drug-free zones. And so in a drug-free zone, police could ask anyone in a group of 2 or more people believed to be there with the purpose of committing a drug-related crime to disperse. And if they refuse to do so, they could be arrested. It would also add a host of new felonies for both violent and property crimes. Strangulation, I agree with this, by the way, strangulation would become a standalone felony. It's kind of shocking that it isn't already. The bill's committee report stated that strangulation is a key predictor of future lethal violence in domestic and intimate partner situations. So I totally agree with this one provision. It would create a new felony offense for endangerment with a firearm, meaning someone who fires a gun in public and doesn't hit anyone can still face a felony. I also agree with that. I don't see why anyone would disagree with that. I mean, it's crazy, but organized retail theft where thieves pick apart grocery stores and luxury stores to later resell the merchandise or return it for a refund would be a new felony offense. If convicted, thieves could face 15 years in prison. The bill also adds a maximum of 10 years for first-degree theft if the merchandise value exceeds $500 or consists of 10 items over 30 days. So they're now shifting to more tough on crime policies, and this should come as no surprise to anyone. Again, if the voters in DC feel unsafe and they plan to retaliate against politicians, local politicians as a result of that, the local politicians are gonna change and they're gonna pivot to tough on crime policies, some of which, those who believe in restorative justice are not gonna be happy about.
Well, look, if you think anti-strangulation laws are problematic, you might not be getting it. And I've got news for you. No one in the real world agrees with you. Everyone, I would say 99%, poll it, 99% of Americans are gonna want strangulation to be a felony. And then lastly, I was at an event for Katie Porter over the weekend, and a woman asked her, look, I'm a progressive, but does it mean that we have to be in favor of crime and lawlessness now? And she's like, no, it does not mean that to be a progressive. And I think that people who say that have lost their minds.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.